That's right. Here it is. It is Wednesday afternoon. Meet me at the diner. Hey, I'm Eller, and today I'm here with Solicitor David M. Stumbo. He's with us in the building here this afternoon, was able to take some time. Of course, he was sworn in as solicitor back on January 9th. And congratulations, and wanted to sit down with you today, David, and just talk about what's going on in the office, how you're able to, we gave you a break, gave you a little time, so you'd have some time to pull everything together. How's it going today, David?
It's going great, Ann. Thank you for having me on the show. We have been very busy. Fortunately, it's the end of the day today, and was able to get out of the office, and glad to be here to talk with you today.
Absolutely. So, with change comes change in offices and change in people and personnel, and I'm curious as to how you are shaping the office of the solicitor.
Well, a lot of the folks that we have in the office were served with Solicitor Peace, with the prior solicitor. And so we did have a lot of continuity. The one thing that I think I have done that's a major change is essentially getting a management team together under a managing deputy solicitor. And what I've done, Dimitri Andrews is my managing deputy there in the office. He's been with the office really since he finished law school. He's been out in practice about 10 years, was hired by Solicitor Towns Jones, and ultimately stayed on there with Solicitor Peace, and he's done a fine job. I know he's working in Newberry, Lawrence, Greenwood, and Abbeville. So Dimitri has had a caseload throughout his time there at various times in all 4 counties, and he's done a great job so far. Essentially, he's running a lot of the day-to-day operations for me. Obviously, we meet together very often. We talk not only in person in the office, but on the phone several times a day, and discuss things and issues that come up.
That's a departure from what was done before?
It is. I think before Solicitor Peace's structure, I think was more or less that he was managing the office, and the other attorneys were out in the courtrooms running the court dockets.
So you're in the courtroom down there?
I have been. In fact, it's been exciting for me. I love trying cases and leading our people, and I really felt like that was something that I promised to do on the campaign trail, and it's something that I think we've had some success with so far. And I've been able to personally try at least one case in all 4 of our counties, and get a conviction in all 4 of our counties. Tried 3 in Greenwood and 1 in each of the other counties. So, 2 in Lawrence as well. So I've tried 7 cases in about 5 or 6 months. So that's kept me pretty busy. Preparing a trial, trying a case sometimes that may last 3 or 4 days, preparing for it, preparing witnesses, getting everything together for that.
Sure.
Takes some time. So since I've taken office, that's been where a lot of my time has been. We've had some training sessions with our assistant solicitors, some of the young attorneys that we have there. We have brought on a couple of brand new attorneys that are young and are jumping right in with 2 feet and doing a good job. So that's where we are right now. We have basically I have a point person for each county as well.
Now, about the different counties, what has been, how are the different counties shaping up? I mean, Greenwood, we see in the paper here, what was it, yesterday's paper, I think I counted 5 or 6 cases there. Lawrence, I understand you have a new investigator over there that they haven't had?
We do, and he just started actually this past Monday, and we were able to hire him. He was an investigator with the city of Lawrence for many years. His name's Walter Bentley. Great guy, good investigator, has great relationships within law enforcement, not only the city but the sheriff's department as well. That's going to help us get cases prepared for court, and so we're glad to have Walter on board. We really need that in Lawrence. Lawrence is, when I took office, by far had the largest backlog of cases in the circuit. We had about 3,800 warrants. With the size of a county like Lawrence is pretty substantial. And so we've reorganized the office over in Lawrence, not only getting a new investigator, but I've also hired a part-time office staff person for Lawrence, who we may eventually turn into a full-time administrative assistant, which they needed that help. Nancy Sitars is our office manager over there, does a great job. She's from Greenwood, but works over the office in Lawrence. So she's doing a great job, but she needed help. And just basic stuff. There was a need for a copier there. The copier they had was on its last leg, was not able to scan in paper. And in this day and age, with court, a lot of evidence transfer in court being electronic, you really have to have a copier that can scan documents and be able to upload that to the system and send out to the defense attorneys when the time comes for that. So I think we're doing some things to get Lawrence back up to speed. It's going to take some time. With the
you were telling me about Lawrence. They had a new jail over there.
They do. They just dedicated that new jail. It was the end of last summer. I'm wanting to say it was sometime in August, but they expanded the jail over there to 290 some odd beds. Which is
That's a lot of beds for Lawrence, I would think.
It is. It's a pretty large jail for that size of county, but they had a lot of need there, and I think the sheriff asked county council if they could expand that jail. It is a nice facility now, and they're doing a good job with it. Chris Hudson is the jail administrator for Sheriff Chastain, and he does a great job. Chris lives up in the Ware Shoals area, but on the Lawrence County side. He's a good friend of mine, and he does a good job running that jail. But we have been able to reduce the amount of people in that jail. It was almost full capacity in around January and February. And it's down to 225 right now, which is as low as it's been in a while. So hopefully we'll continue to.
So how have you been able to do that then?
Well, one of the reasons is we've been able to try a few cases early on. I tried a case in March. It was the first week of March, and a guy named Richard Sylvester Evans. And this is a man who had a prior homicide on his conviction and a prior armed robbery. He had held up a store, the little cricket store there in the city of Lawrence, used a knife, cut up the store clerk. She had a ton of stitches, ended up on her hand, and was cut on her chest as well. Fortunately, she survived and was able to testify in court against this man. We were able to convict him, and we sought life without parole, and he was sentenced to life without parole. And so what I hope that making the example maker cases like that one, and Warren Mowry is one of my attorneys over there. He and I tried that case together, and he did a great job of helping prepare that case as well. But getting those results, I'm hoping, will drive the docket. What that does is there's a trickle-down effect. I think when you get those big sentences, that word gets back to the jail. They make a decision, hey, we better take the plea offer that we're given early on in these cases and go ahead and come up here and plead guilty. And avoid maybe that big sentence on the back end if we dig our heels in and don't take responsibility. If we go to trial and get enough of these big results on some of these cases, that's going to be what moves the docket and gets those guys out of the jail. Sometimes that means they'll go down to the Department of Corrections, and it'll be a ward of the state of South Carolina instead of the county. But other times it may mean that it's a nonviolent offender that gets out on some kind of probationary sentence. But either way, hopefully we're taking that burden off the taxpayers by taking that approach.
Sure. Now, so that's kind of what's going on over in Lawrence. Now, what about Newberry?
I'll tell you, Newberry and was in pretty good shape before, and I think one of the reasons for that is law enforcement really just does a jam-up job there. Not that they don't do a good job in other parts of the circuit, but Sheriff Foster and Chief Jackie Swindler with the city of Newberry have really done a good job of training their guys there. The case files that I've seen, I tried a meth case manufacturing meth case back in February in Newberry, and it was just a fantastic investigation. They did everything that they're supposed to do. They tied up all the loose ends. and it made the case a lot better for when we went to court and tried the case. And I think that there again, that has a trickle-down effect on the caseloads, because
Sure.
the better the cases, these guys know, hey, I'm kind of, they got me, I better come on in and plead guilty instead of getting maybe that harsher sentence if I dig in my heels and go to trial. So I credit law enforcement for part of that. They were much more active in court as well. I think that always helps when you have law enforcement that wants to be a part of the courtroom process. They come to court during court weeks. They are reactive if you say, hey, we need to get this witness into court or that witness into court. Or can y'all bring us this to help us, facilitate this case? Can you talk to the judge at the sentencing if it's a guilty plea and tell them what you think? Mm-hmm. And if you have law enforcement there on the ground during a general sessions week of court, and it helps facilitate court. So Dale Scott is my point man for Newberry now. Dale is a new guy. Dale is someone I brought on who worked with me at the Attorney General's office, who worked with me at Solicitor Meyer's office. He lives in Chapin. So he is right. He was able to not have to move his family. He and his wife and their 2 children live in Chapin, he lives less than 5 minutes from the Newberry County line. So his office is in Newberry, and he runs court and runs the show in Newberry. He and I talk there again. I talked to him earlier today, and Dale's doing a great job. The sheriff's department and the city police department, they really, really like Dale, and I think they're getting along great. So I think maybe that's part of it. Newberry, I really probably have less worries in Newberry than anywhere else in my circuit right now, or less concerns, and that's part of that preceded me taking office. And part of that, I think, is what we put into place.
It's good to have some good things carry over.
That's right, absolutely.
All right, we are here with Solicitor David Stumbo. We are going to hear a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll be back. Hey, if you've got a question for David, give us a call, 229-7984. That's 229-7984. All right, we're right back here at Sharp Facets Gallery. Yes, I'm Ann Eller. Yes, I'm here with Solicitor David Stumbo, talking about the different counties. We've talked a little bit about Lawrence. We've talked about Newberry. Now I got to ask you how Abbeville is shaping up there, David. What's happening over there? Of course, Ray Watson just became sheriff. So what do you think?
He did, and Ray is a friend of mine, and I'm excited to see him over there. And I think that he's such a professional law enforcement officer, has been for many years here in Greenwood County. Ray, I think, has a real burden to kind of raise the bar in Abbeville and raise the bar on not only the quality of the cases there, but the confidence in the community. There's a lot of restoration that needs to be done with the citizens who lost a lot of trust, quite frankly, for obvious reasons. The sheriff.
Well, we've lost trust all the way up to the top in our country right now.
That's right, and it's. I don't think that there's a simple solution to that other than good people stepping out and taking office and working hard for the people, doing the best we can. Ray's one of those guys. And I have the utmost confidence in him that he is going to really restore a lot of that confidence and trust there in the Sheriff's Department in Abbeville. We're going to work very closely with Ray. I mean, we work with him very closely here in Greenwood. In fact, it was very common to have him over at the courthouse during our court weeks. And he was a great liaison. Hey, what do you guys need? Do y'all need whatever you need from us support-wise during your court weeks? He would be there. And I foresee the same thing in Abbeville. It wouldn't shock me at all to see Ray actually there when we're holding court, helping us get the job done. And
sure.
So we're excited about that. The city police department, I've worked with Skipper O'Bannon, who's the interim chief, who also was part of the sheriff's race, ran against Ray Watson. And Skipper O'Bannon's a great guy, a good cop, does things the right way. And the city department there has made some good cases. In fact, Yates Brown is one of my assistant solicitors. He and I tried an armed robbery case that was a City of Abbeville case back in April. And we were able to get a conviction. A lot of that was, great work that they did on the front end. They caught the guy 10 minutes after he robbed the store, and it was they were very proactive in getting on that case and reacting to the tips and the information they were getting, they were able to catch this individual very quickly and make a great case against him. And so I think we have a lot of good things to look forward to in Abbeville County. Calhoun Falls, the chief of police there is Chief Galloway. John Galloway is the chief of police over there. Has been in for 6 to 8 months. He's done a great job as well. He had a lot of problems that were there that needed to be fixed. He's worked very closely with us to try to get some of the old cases that evidence had been lost on some stuff and some things that we really needed to figure out what we were going to do with it. And he did a great job helping us get to that point. So I'm very confident going forward in Abbeville. I know it's been very well documented in the media, the problems over there.
Sure.
And we've got a lot of work to do to build that back up. But with the guys in place now in leadership positions in those agencies, I feel pretty good about where we are right now.
So we've talked about all of them except for Greenwood now, of course. How I just saw where we've looking at putting together a task force between another task force between the police department and the sheriff's department. That has to be approved, I believe, by county council.
It does.
But what are you seeing? I mean, we're seeing a lot more gang activity over here, and of course the drug cases seem to be rampant. How do you see being able to make a difference in what is happening here in Greenwood?
Well, I'll tell you this, Ann, we need to change our mentality a little bit. And actually, I had a great meeting with in our conference room, the solicitor's office, about a month ago, with Sheriff Davis, with Chief Brooks, and a lot of their top guys and investigators that are working these, particularly the gang cases, and the shooting cases, because we have had a rash of them in the past several months. And one of the things that I mentioned, and also I think Sheriff Davis and Chief Brooks both piped in on and both agreed with this, was that we may need to change our mentality with the way we prosecute these cases in court.
Meaning? Traditionally,
and if you have, say, a victim in a case, a shooting case, who is not completely an innocent victim, and by that I mean that they may participate in gang activity and some illegal activity too. There's a lot of shooting cases that are, payback for something that had happened before.
Sure.
That is a large percentage of the shooting cases that we're seeing right now, particularly in the city of Greenwood and out in some of the areas of the county. Country Homes is a neighborhood where we've seen a ton of shootings, and a lot of that is gang related. Now, when I say gang related, I'm not talking about the Crips and the Bloods, but it's very similar to that on a local level. Here in Greenwood, it's the East Side Boys and the South Side Boys are the most notorious ones. But you have these little local gangs,
right?
And they're just as violent and just as dangerous as the Bloods and the Crips in L.A. and New York and a
Aren't
lot
they
of
starting
the
this
urban
in
areas.
the high school level? Isn't where they
Even before that, Ann,
yeah.
we're seeing it start in the middle schools, where they're recruiting kids in the middle schools that don't have strong home
Why do you
lives.
think that's happening? Why do you think that's happening, David?
Well, I think the breakdown in the family, if you look at the larger picture here, I think that's part of it. I think a lot of the easy targets for gangs are kids that don't have strong home lives, and that they want to have that family association. They want to have protection. Maybe they've been had some abuse at home, and they want to they have the bravado as they're getting into middle school and high school as men.
Sure.
To want to be strong and kind of exert their power. And so they become prime targets for the gangs to kind of scoop them up and say, okay, we'll give you protection, we'll give you some power, we'll put a gun in your hand, and we'll let you, do your thing. I think that's why we're seeing that, the breakdown in the family in this country, and even in communities like this over the last 30, 40 years in this country. I think it's a major reason for that. That's kind of my side
I think you're right.
editorial there. I
Well,
think
that's
part of it.
okay. We allow editorialism
That's right.
here on this show. Hey, right now it is time for South Carolina news and a word from our sponsors. We'll be back here with Solicitor David Stumbo. Don't you go away. This is WCRS. Want to give us a call? Call us 229-7984. That's 229-7984.
Are you a pirate or a pack rat? Do you have a vacation of a lifetime sitting in the attic? Or a college tuition hung on a wall? Or is a fabulous retirement hidden in your jewelry box? Bring those items to Sharp Facets Gallery. We can establish value and buy from you or sell for you. And so ends another chapter at Sharp Facets Gallery, 72 Bypass, and on the web, sharpfacets.com.
Oh, that's right. We're right back here with Solicitor David M. Stumbo this afternoon talking about the courts. We've actually talked about this afternoon so far. We've pretty much covered, I think we could say, Lawrence. We've covered Newberry. We've talked about Abbeville. And, of course, then we were getting ready to talk a little bit about Greenwood. And, of course, these issues that we're having with the so many cases, whether it's a robbery, the gun cases, we're having the gang cases. I'd say drugs are just running rampant here. I can remember, gosh, I've been doing this, I guess 5 or 6 years ago, when they were saying, oh, gang activity will be coming, drugs will be coming. Well, I think they're here.
They are, no question about it.
But what do you think is driving all this, David? I mean, you know, we started to talk a little bit about the family, but what do you think is driving this? What's happening to our world, particularly as it refers to Greenwood, because that's our world here.
I think that there's probably a lot of reasons for it, and but there again, one of the things that we talked about, with Sheriff Davis and Chief Brooks is that traditionally in the prosecution world, we look at these cases as if, well, if the victim's not necessarily a completely innocent person themselves, then we'll just kind of push that case to the back burner, and that case may end up getting a light sentence.
Mm-hmm.
The crime committed by the defendant is just as egregious, though. If they're shooting a gun into a crowd of people, if they were intending to hit target A from that's a rival gang member, and they end up hitting a 15-year-old boy, like happened here right behind the sheriff's department about a month ago, then those types of cases, we need to start taking a harder line on them. I don't know any better way to put it than that. But we just have to say, listen, I know the victim's not
sterling
maybe
character.
not the most sterling of characters, but we have to start dropping the hammer on these guys that are taking guns out and putting people at risk. That's the bottom line, and the only way we do that is we take a tougher line in the courtroom. We're going to have to say, listen, you're not getting that sweetheart deal that maybe you would have gotten in the past with a less than sterling victim. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to just take it to trial, and we'll let the jury make a decision on it. And we need to take a harder approach. I don't think there's any question about that. And if we don't, we're going to continue to see a rise in these incidents, because these guys are going to get back out on the streets and do it again.
Well, with all the cases that I see in the paper just about every day, the caseload here in Greenwood has to be pretty high.
It is, and it stays pretty steady. Usually in Greenwood, we get in circuit-wide, it's 6,500 to 7,000 warrants a year on average. It's gone up a little bit over time. Greenwood and Lawrence are by far the biggest chunks of cases we have across the 4 counties. But Greenwood, I think we're getting it manageable. We had a week this week where we didn't end up trying any cases, but we've had a pretty busy week putting cases in front of the judge. 2 of the cases that were going to trial pled guilty straight up, which means when it's a straight up plea, that means that they come in and the judge gives them whatever they're going to give them on a sentence on the day of trial. Mm-hmm. In that case, we've done our job, because that's an individual who before said, well, I'm not going to come in and take a guilty plea. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take responsibility. and now we force them to take responsibility and put the sentencing in the judge's hands. But we've had a fairly busy week there, moving other cases as well. And I think the trickle-down effect you have when you hold people's feet to the fire, defendants, if you hold their feet to the fire on some of the worst cases, and you have those example-making cases where you're really popping defendants, the trickle-down effect to that for your docket, and as you start to move it. And hopefully you're moving as many cases as come in on a month-to-month basis. I will say this, I think on the front end is part of what I think is changing the culture here. With us trying more cases, we're going to take up some court time trying those cases.
Sure.
And that may cause us not to necessarily put a big dent in the numbers. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that if to take a little bit of a short-term loss in terms of our ability to move cases, we have a long-term gain. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're getting towards. And I'm seeing that change of culture. I'm really seeing an excitement with our assistant solicitors with getting into court. Last week we had an assistant solicitor who earned her first jury trial conviction since she's been in the office, and she's been in there a year and a half or so. Now, she's moved a lot of cases, but she was able to get a conviction at trial on an obstruction of justice case that was in the paper last week, and was able to get a 7-year sentence, which was
Is that the one that swallowed the cocaine?
That is exactly that case.
I like that, obstruction of justice.
They did. I mean, and that was a creative.
Did you guys wait for it to come out?
That was a
reclaim the evidence.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to handle that evidence. That was a perfect example of law enforcement in our office trying to be creative with it. The guy, dug in his heels. In fact, he said to the cops, this is on the dash cam video, and when he swallowed the cocaine, he said, well, there goes your evidence. You got nothing on me. And they said, oh, yeah, well, how about this? Obstruction of justice. And the jury came back with a guilty verdict, and it was the right decision. That was an individual who, it wasn't his first rodeo, obviously. He knew about destruction of evidence, so he's been around the block a time or two, and he had a pretty substantial rap sheet, and the judge recognized that and gave him a 7-year sentence. He probably would not have gotten a 7-year sentence if he had come in right at the beginning of the case and said, you know what, y'all got me, I'm going to plead guilty. Right. I seriously doubt he would have had that much time. So that was the excitement that I think, Ann, that we're starting to create with our assistant solicitors. Shannon Odom's one of our lawyers, and she was the one that prosecuted that case and just did a phenomenal job. The highway patrolman that investigated that case and was the one that did the traffic stop, actually, Ann, sent me a text message that day.
Excuse me, David.
No, that's fine, Ann. You're fine. And he sent me a text message later that day after they got the conviction that evening, and was just so complimentary of the way Shannon handled that case and of our office, and thanked us for being proactive and aggressive with that particular case. And so my hope is that with those kind of results, we continue to keep criminal defendants on their heels. And I think we have to do that. That is the only way we will move this docket effectively. And so I think we're getting there, Ann. We're not there. We haven't arrived, but we're working hard and we're doing our best to get to that point.
So I gotta ask you, how's it going with the defense lawyers?
Well, there again, some of them, I think I've had a great working relationship with a lot of the private attorneys in town, the public defenders, hit or miss. I think there again, the more cases we're calling for trial, that is going to necessitate them having to prepare their cases for trial too. It means you have to maybe work more. Maybe it means you have to come in on a weekend to get a case ready for Monday morning. And our people are doing that, and that is going to also have that same effect on the defense attorneys. So I'm sure that I haven't made a lot of fans of those that have had to come and work on weekends where maybe they didn't have to so much before. But that being said, one of the things that I've stressed to my attorneys, Ann, is that you need to be honest. You need to stick to your principles, and when you make a plea offer and it's accepted, you stick to it. You don't back out on plea offers. And I'd heard from some defense attorneys in this circuit that they had some experiences like that, where there was a deal made, they had everybody ready, they came to court, and it was a fair resolution of the case, and then the deal was pulled. And that's something that I've told my attorneys that we cannot do. Our word is our bond. If you negotiated a case and you made a deal, stick to it. And don't jerk defense attorneys around, especially the private attorneys, that their time is money for them.
Sure,
and so
absolutely.
if you're holding them hostage in court and just making them sit there and wait for half a day on their case where it's unnecessary, and you could go in and get them handled and get them out of there, they appreciate that. And like I said, I've told my attorneys I want them to be cognizant of that and be respectful of their time.
Absolutely. Well, we are here with Solicitor David Stumbo. We are going to hear a quick word for our sponsors, and I'm going to get my voice back, so don't
that's
you
right.
go right back here, Sharp Facets Gallery. I'm Ann Eller right here with Solicitor David Stumbo, and just having some good conversation, getting really caught up with what is happening in the solicitor's office and some of the things that have already happened and some of the things that actually will be happening. So one of the things, David, we really wanted to talk a little bit about is what is happening in the prisons, because you're talking about convicting more people. That's great, but I understand the prisons are overflowing.
Well, they are, Ann, and that you're either going to have to do one of two things in this world. Either the legislature is going to have to appropriate more money to build more prisons. Mm-hmm. That's solution number one.
Okay.
Solution number two would be to try to come up with more creative solutions to handle nonviolent offenders and those that we can hold accountable and have some punishment, but also to restore back to the community these individuals in a non-prison setting.
Sure.
One of the things that we've done in our office, a couple of them, pretrial intervention is a program for first-time nonviolent offenders. That's been a lot of folks know about pretrial intervention, or PTI. It's been part of the solicitor's office here and all the others all over the state for the last number of years. That is one way we can do that. We need to be, I think that we need to use that program to the maximum extent that we can use it, to be quite honest with you, because we can't put every first-time person in. Another reason is I think that people who screw up that first time sometimes need that second chance. And so our PTI program is very vibrant. We have a lot of folks that we run through PTI that we don't feel are a danger to the community. And a lot of those folks, hopefully that's all they need, is that one little scare to say, hey, I could have gone to prison for this, but I'm getting some grace here. The second one that I'm very, very concerned about right now that we expand, and is drug court, because I came out of a circuit, out of the 11th Circuit that I worked for about 4 years with Solicitor Myers. They started the first drug court program in that circuit in the state back in the early 90s. And I was able to run a lot of people through drug court and have to see a lot of success stories in my time in Lexington. In fact, one of the most rewarding moments I had as a prosecutor was sitting in a drug court graduation in Lexington County with a female that was just strung out on meth when I had her case, put her in drug court. She was in there for about 2 years. In fact, when she graduated, I'd already left the office and gone back to the Attorney General's office and worked for Attorney General Wilson. I got a call from the drug court coordinator in Lexington, Brooke Lewis, and she said, David, this girl really wants you to come to her graduation. She's really thankful that you gave her this chance in drug court. And I went to that ceremony in the Lexington County Courthouse. It was phenomenal. The before and after pictures of this young lady now who had a job and whose family was there surrounding her and just shedding tears on how she's changed her life. It works. Now some people don't take advantage of it. They put them into drug court and they fail out and then they go to prison. But we need to really enhance those programs. Funding is an issue for that. That's something that I'd like to work on.
Small program.
It is, and I think in the past it's been because the folks that are in the program have to foot the bill completely for it. I'm looking for some creative ways that we can maybe minimize that cost, that we can supplement the cost a little bit with some of the money we're getting from the state for drug court, and do what we can to put more people into that program who are willing to do it. And I want my attorneys to screen those folks out. I wanted to make sure if they want to do this drug court program, that they know what's involved. It's very intense. They get drug tested several times a week. They need to be gainfully employed if they can get a job, even if it's a part-time job. Idle hands, I guess, are kind of the devil's playground. And so if they're not working and not productive, they're probably going to go back to dope. So,
and I think one of the other issues, isn't it, they have to already plead guilty, but they withhold the sentencing. Am I correct on that? And if you make it through, then they...
That's right. Then the charges are actually, the guilty plea is withdrawn, and their record for that particular charge is clean.
Right.
Now, there is something that we started. There's a level 1 and a level 2 for drug court. I think prior to me taking office, all we had was the level 2, which was what we call level 2 now, which is when you plead guilty on the front end. My view of that is there's some cases that you don't necessarily need to do that. Maybe you go ahead and put them in the program, and then if they don't make it, bring it back and prosecute them.
Sure.
The other ways, there's pros and cons to both ways of doing it. Sometimes the more strung out the addict, the more likelihood there is that there can be them failing out of it, and you may need to go ahead and take the plea. You have the sentence hanging out over their head, and if they fail out of the program, they get that sentence. They go back in front of the judge, they get sentenced to that term, and they go off to jail.
Sure.
Some of the more, less addicted folks, if you want to call it that, maybe and we have a less intense range now. That's a level 1, where we can put them into the program before they go to court.
Now, so we've got drug court, we've got PTI. I know you have some other intervention programs, but what do you see for Greenwood as far as, since we're at 4:55 in the afternoon, what do you see at the future with Greenwood and the direction that you're headed? I mean, we've talked to some about the drug cases. We've talked gun violence is increasing. We also, of course, have the gangs like you're talking about. We know the economy's not good, so that means that a lot of people are desperate people, do desperate things.
Right.
What do you see the future with Greenwood?
Well, I'm kind of the eternal optimist, Dan. So, I think I have to be in the job I'm in. Quite frankly, if I wasn't optimistic, it could get pretty demoralizing and depressing seeing what we see in the paper every day, seeing the cases.
Well,
we
those
see
of us
come
that
through
read the
door.
paper, yes, that's what
It
we
is.
get. Yes.
There's a lot of bad news. That being said, I'm encouraged with the quality of law enforcement that we have, particularly in Greenwood. I think Chief Brooks and his guys are is working as hard as they can. I think Sheriff Davis has a great staff over there that's working very hard to make arrests and investigate these cases. I think we can raise the bar on our end in court and start showing them, hey, we're getting results. And I've heard that already from a lot of the investigators and road officers in Greenwood. They're excited on what we're doing in court. And the more positive buzz we can create by really hammering some of the worst defendants we have, that's going to raise the confidence, I think, in the community. And I'm hoping that the local media will come alongside us with that and report it when we get good news.
Sure.
Not just when we see the arrest, but on the back end, if we're getting some good results on these cases, that we blast that out there in the public through the media outlets and say, hey, listen, we're doing something about this. You can have confidence that your law enforcement's working hard to try to put the defendants on the defensive.
As far as you're concerned, what are the cases that you see that really need to? I mean, is it our gun violence part? Is it the drugs? What do you see as the issue that you really want to? I know when you were campaigning, predatory sex acts and this type of thing on children was a big one for you. But what are you really seeing now that you're in there, and what do you see that you want to really stamp out, if it could be, or reduce to such a level?
Well, I think the two main ones are, like you just mentioned, one that will always be near and dear to my heart is protecting children. I think the more headlines we create saying, hey, this guy's going to prison for a long time now because he hurt this child, sexually abused this child, that never is a bad thing. Does it mean that we're going to completely eradicate it? Probably not, but it's going to have a positive effect on deterring it, I think. But gun violence is something that's very, very prevalent in Greenwood right now. So my priority for Greenwood, and there again, we're meeting together,
Sure.
Sheriff, Chief Brooks, myself, and talking to the guys about coming up with proactive ways. I mean, going into the communities and coming out and walking. They've actually done some of that.
Walking there.
I
We've
know
got
you
our
mentioned
share.
that, but driving a van into a community and jumping out and saying, all right, we're here now, walk around and show them that there's a police presence in some of these dangerous areas.
Sure.
And when we get them into court, after we've got a case, even if it's a case that's difficult to prove, that we take it to trial and do what we can to get a conviction and make sure that person's down the road and not in this community anymore.
So those are the ones, and the gangs is a situation.
And I think the gangs is part of the gun violence right
Okay,
now.
so
That
you're
is
saying
a
it's kind of
major
related.
part of the violent activity in this area. Is the shooting cases? Many of them are tied back to gang activity here. And so if we just take a hard line on the gun violence cases, I think what we're going to see is gangs. They're, again, instead of flexing their muscles all over town, that they're going into rat holes and not affecting our community nearly as much. So.
Absolutely. Well, Solicitor David Stumbo, it's been a pleasure to have you here today. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, Ann, and I look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. This is WCRS right here in Greenwood. Bye-bye, everybody. I'll be back in the morning this afternoon. We did interview Congressman Jeff Duncan, so hopefully we'll be able to play at least part of that for you tomorrow morning. It was a good interview. And I don't know, who else am I talking to tomorrow morning on the I Love Ann show? Oh, Penny Parisi will be here in the afternoon. I think I have another interview, but hey, tune in, 8 o'clock. I'll be here, Peggy will be here. We'll be having a good time. Hope to have you on the radio with us. Bye-bye, everybody.